Okay, guys, it's Nolan and Jason here with the Webmasters. We're going to talk about how on-page SEO impacts search rankings. So,
Alrighty.
I feel like this one's pretty basic, but there's a lot of little things to it that it's basic but screwed up by so many people. I'll give you an example, one that I saw the other day that I was training some of our crew on, and we were talking about a website that looked good.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, hey, here's a website that you would think looks good and is done well.
Right.
And I said, let's go find out. So at that time, right when I stared at it, all I saw was a website that looked pretty, that had some page content, presumably. It was unique and custom and all that, and don't know any of that until I start looking at it. So we go in and go look at the title tag, and the title tag was the same exact one on all the pages. So every page, and then we'll explain some of this in a second, but so the title tag is the same on all the pages. None of
was it just like the company name or whatever?
Yeah, it was like such and such company and services, but it did at least list their service, but it was the same on like 30 pages.
Yeah.
They also had no H1 headers on any of the page content, but someone had bothered to write content. So someone had gotten
That's something.
Someone had gotten this pretty decent looking template, which we don't use, by the way, because they lack proper code base for Google to parcel data.
Right.
Primarily, right?
Right.
So we don't use those, but the template they had looked good. And when you first looked, now what I deemed from it, because I was actually talking, when we were talking to this group here at the office, what I deemed from it is that some poor business person had paid good money, which, by the way, it's the case like 95% of the time. So I could tell that this guy had paid money and tried to get this done, and someone had basically just messed him around horribly.
Someone had taken his money, gone and bought a $60, maybe $30, maybe $60 template for WordPress, stuck it up there, and they had, kudos, done the job of doing some content, or maybe the business owner had to do that himself.
He might have.
We hear that a lot too.
Yeah.
That they had nothing on their site, and their web person didn't do anything, so finally they went in and wrote some themselves.
It was a lot of content that had gone into it, but they were also basic pages. So the pages were just like paragraph, and they all had like 300 words, 300 words, 300 words. No pictures, no nothing, no header.
Right.
And so this is like not only kind of common, but like the very most common thing that we see. Now, it's some version of this, a template website with sparse content, no content, or content that's all messed up. In this
missing fundamental SEO elements.
Yeah, these are fundamental items. So it has this basic design that is a template that misses all the good schema code, and it's not on-page stuff, I guess, but once they go to the on-page side of things, it's like, okay, I guess it is an on-page item. It's just not an on-page item that you can see.
Yeah, yeah. Google sees it, but
it is an on-page item per page. It's just in the code base.
Right.
So technically it works for what we're talking about here. The title tag is in the code base, and if you want to see this yourself and you're on Chrome and you're on a website, hit Control-U, and it will populate the code base for the page that you're on. And then you could hit Control-F for find and type in title, and either the first, second, or third title will be the title for the page. Yeah. Right.
And just if you're looking on Chrome, up in the title bar of your window, if you're not Nolan and don't have 1,000 tabs open where they're only this big, the title tag will actually be in the tab.
Did not know that.
Well, that's because your tabs are his tabs on his browser
never
are like
seen that before.
Because he has like 40 tabs open minimum. At any
so it's already
time.
On there.
Yeah, you can actually see it up up in the title bar.
Okay, I seriously don't know because my tabs are so small.
He uses tabs as bookmarks.
I have trouble going in between them without hitting the X. I have to go around the X.
I've seen that.
It's like,
dang it, I closed the tab.
But anyway, so that title tag should be different for every page.
Yeah.
It's basically the dummy way to say, hey, Google, here's what my page is about.
Yeah, that is the first, as Google parses the page and looks at it.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that tells them what the page is about. And it can't just be about, well, it's about my business. That's not a good enough answer. It has to have an actual subject.
Yeah, it should have the subject, and then the things that follow should substantiate that title tag.
Yeah, should reinforce
Yeah.
and substantiate. Good word.
That's as high end as I get, man.
He's used up all his syllables today.
So yeah, but yeah, so that title tag, whatever it is, and should be, if you're going, I don't know what to use for an example here. Let's say that it's a bail bondsman or I don't know, a fence and gate guy. So let's say they do automatic gate repair. So it's automatic gate repair, pipe bar, ABC automatic gate repair.
Right.
So that's a good title tag as long as it has less than about 60 characters.
Yeah. The title tag doesn't necessarily have to be it can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be natural language. Like it doesn't have to be a proper sentence or anything.
You wouldn't want it to be.
You get that down where you get into the actual meat of the content itself.
Right.
And then the title tag and then the meta description, which is it's a description of the page that appears only in the code and on the search result page sometimes if Google decides to show it.
Right.
And then your H1, those things should build on each other and reinforce each other. And then the content itself is supposed to be whatever you said it's going to be about.
Right. Not only nowadays what you said it's going to be about, but expanded nicely about that, like really written well. And so if you can have it, you could have a title tag that was substantiated by alt tags, which are define the pictures on there with words inside the code, and then you could have a header that also was in line with it, and then you could have 300 words on there. I guess I give the Debbie Downer on the deal here, because you could do all this stuff but not be competitive in your marketplace. So it's really kind of a poor effort for Denver or Dallas or Houston or Phoenix, right? So you could do all these things properly still, just to be clear, and still not have done enough for the market that you're in.
Right.
But if you start out and you don't even do any of these things, like this guy was actually in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and he was a roofer that we were looking at the site on.
Okay.
And it was a really good example because there's this guy that also had 90-something Google reviews, so you knew he was fighting. And you could tell by looking at it. It was actually kind of sad because it was just so par for, unfortunately, the industry that we're in, that business owners pay for services, and then they don't get it provided.
Yeah, because they don't understand the ins and outs of what we do, and unscrupulous people or just incompetent people, in some cases, take advantage of them.
Sometimes people don't do this, and it's a one-time. So this isn't typically a one-time effort on a moving site. Right. Even the on-page stuff would need to change, and I'll do a recap of these in a minute here, but even that would need to change. I don't know, because we didn't even know this guy. We randomly searched him, and I went boom, and then picked one. And I was actually way down in mapping, by the way. His map with 91 reviews was not populating because of so much stuff that was messed up, and he was one of the most reviewed guys in town. This is part of the reason it doesn't show up, because all this on-page stuff is
because reviews are not the end-all be-all.
It's important, but it's important, but it doesn't show up on its own. Just like a lot of things, they all work in unison.
Right.
Why would Google show some guy who didn't list what each page is about, didn't have headers, title tags are duplicated, and so it's like, okay, it actually slows down the process of everything else's ability to even happen. Question is, did the guy try to go cheap and get around paying somebody? All right, let's talk about that for a minute, just real candidly, assuming that potential clients are watching this.
Okay.
Why in the world would somebody have a company that earns good money, that they hope to accomplish their dreams, pay for their kids, house, food, children, and then completely scoff and ignore the number one marketing method that's ever existed in humanity? Why would they say, I'm going to go as cheap as I can. I'm going to throw this up. Well, you do it once. What did we say earlier? Dip it in what?
You said dip it in Chrome. I said encase it in Lucite.
Lucite. Dip it in Lucite. Defy Google. I say it doesn't change. You dumb web geeks do what I told you to do and make it happen. I don't want to touch it again. It better go to the top, or I'm going to walk over there and kick everybody's butt.
And we've had that conversation.
Actually, we have had that conversation.
We have had that conversation.
We have had that. So why would let's assume this guy didn't pay anything. What would possess someone to do so? possess someone to not get educated on the most basics of optimization or stuff today? Granted that they're not going to know everything. I don't know 10% as much as Jason does about code base. You don't have to
That's
get all
generous. He knew I was going to go there.
you were setting in for it before I
was
finished the
waiting.
sentence.
Ah, my moment has come.
Finally vindicated. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I know enough to know a little bit about it, right? Because I own this company.
You know enough to know when someone's BSing.
I know
about
enough to
it.
run the company a little bit with help of fine individuals like Jason that can go bonk people on the head that knows the technical end of the thing, right?
Right.
So, but why would someone say, I granted, they're not going to get it even to my level. That won't happen.
Yeah.
But they know they need to work on it. Why wouldn't they work on it? Why wouldn't they pay anybody to work on it?
I can't even answer that. A lot of time it's people like our generation that got raised on the yellow pages and they still think it can work that way.
But
or radio ads. We've had.
But you paid for radio ads in yellow pages. And by the way, guys,
Well, they still want to pay for that. I mean, we've got
That's true.
We've got a client that when he gets leads from us, he gets angry with us occasionally and says, those came from the radio ads. Right. And we're like, well, we have analytics that say they came from the website, and he doesn't want to believe us.
That came from Sally talking to Joe, talking to Bobby down at the bowling alley at the Friday night tournament.
Yeah.
And then we got together and had sponge cake on the porch stoop after Mary Jo played piano.
It's like, but we
That's
have
the old-
analytics that say
That's
it came
the
from
old school, but
Yeah.
that is old school mentality on like how leads occurred. And then I guess nowadays too, I guess that did answer the question kind of, because it is kind of hidden in there, that people don't understand what goes on here, so they feel uncomfortable spending the money.
Right.
They want to believe it comes from other places, but we all know that everybody's online nowadays.
Yeah.
Right. So this stuff, when you have it happen, so I'm going to read through just a little list of things. Title tag goes to, and there's other stuff. Can you name off other code base items?
If you're talking like
Alt tags and stuff.
like invisible stuff.
Yeah, invisible.
You've got alt tags on images. You've got title tags. You've got meta descriptions. There's other meta tags. Meta tags are things that occur in the code of the website that give Google information that the viewer doesn't see, and it's supposed to support what the viewer does see. That's the important thing: is the meta information and the visible information has to match. You can't do a you can't pull a fast one on that.
Would you include other things like your schema code and semantic mark?
I was getting there.
Okay.
If you would just let me talk.
My bad.
But you've got schema, which tells Google that of the visible information on the site, this is a service we perform. Like there's code you can put in that highlights the name of a service in there that you've got listed as the header subheader of part of the page, and it lists and tells Google that is actually a service we offer, and they take that into account when they decide whether to show you on mapping if someone searches for that.
Right.
And there's all kind of things you can.
Those are like higher end coding things like the schema and semantic markup, even structured URLs. So let's talk about that one for a second. So let's say that it's we'll just stick with the roofer for the example. Let's say it's ABC Roofing Company of PhoenixAZ.com. I just did that so we don't.
That's a long URL.
I don't want somebody typing one in. Oh, this is a real guy. But anyway, so nobody will have that. And then it's /commercial roofing /TPO. So, or TPO roof repair even. So,
Right.
So that's a properly structured URL. And if it shows up in organic search results, Google's like, okay, great. If I show that URL, it explains the page.
Right.
And
Right.
So
It gives me sort of a very brief idea of what the page is about and where in the hierarchy of this information it
from
sits.
a Google standpoint, it does the hierarchy of the website, or what do you call it, the silo architecture,
Yeah.
parent-child format, is structured properly and builds on each other. But from a Google client perspective, somebody that searched it, they will actually see the URL, and does it help the user experience? And so there's multiple facets to that as to why it would
Right.
work. So and I don't know, I can't say one of these, but if they had just let WordPress name it, what does the gobbledygook look like?
Oh, if you don't tell WordPress what to do properly, it would be, ABC Roofing Arizona Phoenix.com / P equals and then an ID number and then / P equals and another ID number, which tells nobody anything.
So this is like really lazy web geek 101 stuff.
Yeah, it's like someone just made the page and didn't bother telling WordPress what to do.
More of this stuff. And then LSI keywords, latent semantic indexing.
I struggled with that term too for like a month. So
it's a way to write content that actually instead of just plugging in, I want to show up for roofer in Tulsa. So you go, if you're looking for a roofer in Tulsa, okay, come to it. By the way, roofer in Tulsa. By the way, and they just keep repeating it. And
right.
So you have your keyword. You set it in the title tag. You set it in an H1. They know what it's about. If you actually artificially inject that, it makes for a poor user experience. It's not naturally a way someone would write. Now, search engines are hypocritical about this because if they don't have some pattern, it's not going to work well.
Right.
So you have to have a teeny bit of a pattern, but it can't.
But not too much.
Not too much. Can't read poorly. Reviews integrated into the page. Your social buttons to click on. I'm even going to go down to design calls to action because it's going to.
Can I mention on reviews? Mm-hmm. We've mentioned schema a couple of times. There's a piece of schema code you do on reviews. If you've ever looked at a Google search, if you ever searched Google, and I'm sure you have, and you've seen a bunch of businesses show up, you've probably seen one or two of them that had those review stars, the star rating right there in the search result. Unless that was on the page in schema code, which you don't see, but it is it's on the page and in the code, that won't show up in the search engine. That's the entire way that shows up.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an on-page thing.
All sorts of little review integrated items,
Right.
We're kind of expanding some stuff that are things that we do here.
Yeah.
I guess that do get graded. Just understand they're all getting graded. But yeah, and lastly, I had on here just design, time on site, calls to action. Because if all this is actually, if all this on-page elements looks good, structured well, it's not just blocks of content without pictures or an infographic, and all the other elements are there, like integrated reviews, or possibly our proprietary program scrolls recent reviews from Google and Facebook and stuff across the footer. And
right.
So if all that other stuff is done well, then your time on site's going to be longer, your conversion is higher, which decreases the bounce rate and conversion, which increases your ranking.
Right.
So all this stuff helps. I don't know. I mean, that's it in a nutshell, basically.
Yeah. But I mean, even with that, it's a lot to unpack, and there's a lot there. There's a lot that has to be done.
Yeah. So this doesn't get done 95+% of the time, right?
Yeah. When Nolan is talking to a client, he often has me look at their website and evaluate it. And 95% of the time, I've got the same things wrong with it. And it's the stuff, some variation of the either a few or all of the things on that list.
It's a gratuitous look at the site because the client wants us to look at it. But it's only looked at to appease the client, to try to further explain to the client why they need these things done.
But it's literally like almost always the same thing.
I mean, these are actually fair questions that people ask. And there's not like these questions that people ask are like, okay, that's fair. You should be asking that question. But it's really, truly trying to get someone to the point to where they understand what needs to be done, agree to allow us to do it, and try again to have it done. And I say try again because most people get screwed around and this stuff doesn't get done, and therefore they're not sure about services and don't think it works, but it works really well if it's done.
Yeah. That's the other answer to your question earlier about why don't they do it.
True.
It's because they've tried to do it and someone messed with them, screwed them over, and now they think we're all unscrupulous.
It doesn't. It can get done well. You just have to have a really credible digital marketing agency like the Webmasters to help you with this stuff. It's true though. There's not that many of us,
That's very true.
and I'm not friends with any of the other ones, and there's almost none of them, right? So we don't hang out together or anything.
We don't.
There's not a room where all the good digital marketing agencies to get together and
I don't hang out with any of those people.
I don't know. Yeah, we don't hang out with any of them. There's not any other good ones around us. I'm talking about across the country.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the only ones around here. But anyway, yeah, so that's a good explanation of how on-page SEO impacts search rankings. Is stuff that you can see, stuff that you cannot see, and then in addition to all of that, you want as much of these tiny factors done as possible to as high a degree as possible so that you get a better grade from the search engines, because the reason you're doing all this is to get a better grade. And it's not just that you jumped through hoops and did it, it's that you actually created a better user experience when you did so.
Right.
Right? So it literally did create a better user experience for all these little items to be done. I think we didn't talk about it earlier when you're talking about like alt tags and things that are not seen and seen. Wasn't a lot of the unseen things originally done for someone that couldn't see?
A lot of like
impaired.
alt text specifically were accessibility stuff, like calling like a description of the picture, so that
So
a
sight
sight impaired person would know what's there and stuff like
I
that.
don't even know if it still does. That still work that way?
Oh,
If you're sight
absolutely,
impaired,
yeah.
can you get online and navigate?
There's software that you can hook into your browser that'll go through the page, and like it'll say, okay, navigation. Here's the list, and this is the header. This is the content, and it will actually speak the content to you.
Yeah.
And then it'll go down and say, there's a picture here, and it'll tell you what the alt tag says. And so if your alt tag is just a bunch of keyword stuff crud,
Right.
Google doesn't like that. And they know, by the way, they know what's in the picture. So if your description of a picture doesn't match what's in the picture, they know.
Yeah. So whether you like it or not, if you don't have those items marked for sight impaired, they're definitely not gonna like it.
Right.
So it's not helping their effort, and they're definitely a company that would want to help with that sort of thing, right?
Yeah. They absolutely
Yeah.
will punish you if you do not
Yeah.
include those things.
Anyway, there's a lot of little details. We'd love to help you with it. You guys, as always, call us, and if you have any questions, and we look forward to hearing from you.
See ya.
Bye-bye.